Before I get into today's video, remember to follow me on Twitter. So my Twitter, the link is in the description below. You can also find me. My handle is @JacksonKruger. Come over, say hi. And anyways, back to your regularly scheduled video. All right, let's talk some New Orleans Saints cap situation because they're always one of the more unique and fascinating teams. Obviously, last year they were over $100 million over the cap and then got through that relatively unscathed for the most part. This year, they're now $76 million over the cap. To some degree, this is just what they do. Again, you can kick the can down the road, so to speak, and you can spend over the salary cap. I often talk about, usually it's less about the salary cap and more about how much is the owner willing to spend, and the Saints owner is willing to spend, so that's good news for your football team. So let's just talk about, who are their free agents and what is their cap situation. So here we go. So they currently have negative $76 million in cap space. So that seems like, okay, well, they must be in cap hell. There's a horrible situation. I mean, people have speculated, oh, this is why Sean Payton left, is because of the cap situation. Well, no. I mean, this is what the Saints just do. The players that they have to re-sign and what you see next to them, that's the PFF projection on how much money they would get in free agency. So Terron Armstead, he's projected to get $20 million. That seems about right. I mean, a good franchise left tackle. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of money in free agency. There's no denying that. Marcus Williams, they are projecting to get $16 million in free agency, which seems a bit high just for his position, but he's certainly a good player. Don't let the Minneapolis Miracle fool you. That was one play. He's good outside of that. And then Jameis Winston projected to get $7 million, so your starting quarterback potentially could be on the market. Now, you could use the tag here, but keep in mind they franchise tagged Marcus Williams last year, and for guys like Winston and Armstead, their positions caused the tag to be a lot higher. So even if you use a tag, you're spending a lot of money on that. So to clear up, for what they would need to re-sign everyone would be $43 million. So to make that work, they would have to, in theory, clear up $119 million. As for the players they could cut, the only real guy that is going to make a sizable dent would be Bradley Roby. You could save $9 million if you wanted to cut or trade him. So you could do that. I mean, that'll save you a little bit of money. So sure, that's an option. So a lot of people are going to be like, wait, so are they just screwed? But no, that is not exactly how it works. Let me use a diagram to kind of explain. So for example, the contract you see on your screen right now, I guess the numbers you see on the screen, this is Marshawn Lattimore's contract. And the one on the left, the column on the left is what year it is. The column on the right, how many millions of dollars he would make per year. So you see, that's a super high cap hit. That's $27 million in 2022. Oh my God. How are you going to get around that? That can completely set your franchise back, right? You're paying a quarterback money, basically. Well, there's actually very simple ways to get around this. It's like every team does this. It's super easy. You could do something like this, where what you're doing is you're extending him for one more season, and you're just kind of restructuring what the cap hit is for those years. So you see, instead of making $27 million in 2022, it's just a $7 million cap hit in 2022. Now, in doing this, you have to add the extra $20 million, and I'm also actually adding $40 million total because I'm giving him an extra year. That evaluation is $20 million for 2027. Maybe he'd get that much, maybe he wouldn't, I don't know. But these extensions can really help. It doesn't have to be an extension. You can just restructure, but either way, you can restructure or you can extend, and there's really kind of no limit on what you can do with this. You can really stretch this stuff out. So for the Saints, who are $76 million over the cap, with just one player, they're now just $56 million over the cap if you do something like this. So, and you could make it $1 million in 2022 if you wanted to. You can make it go really far down. There's no limit. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Now, some people might argue, well, wait a second. Would Marshawn Lattimore agree to make $20 million less in 2022, even if he's getting more money in the future? That's not how that works. The actual cash he gets would be, usually when you do this stuff, he actually gets more cash immediately, and then you do it this way because you're spreading the signing bonus out over time in terms of the cap hit, but he's actually getting more actual cash now. So this is why you'll see a team like the Saints consistently spend over the salary cap, but never really have to lose guys. Usually when a team says, oh, we can't afford this guy, it's because the ownership is only giving you so much money, not because of the actual salary cap itself. The salary cap itself doesn't really do much. Like really 30 out of the 32 teams spent over the salary cap last year. One of the teams that didn't spend over the salary cap was the Falcons, who spent under the salary floor. Only the Chargers spent the actual money you're supposed to spend in terms of actual cash. So that's just kind of the interesting thing there. But now let's go over here and let's talk about the actual roster itself. So this is the PFF grade for each positional category, and this is where potentially some of this spending could come back to bite you a little bit, right? Because, okay, sure, you have an owner who's willing to spend $50 million more than what's the salary cap is. Okay, that's cool, but that still doesn't mean he's willing to spend $500 million more. Like, you still do only have so much, and while you'll probably be able to keep everybody, in fact, I don't think it's out of the question that they end up keeping Armstead, Williams, and Winston. I think those are all potential guys they could keep, just because given the way that they can restructure things. However, it's not always about that. Oftentimes, it's about, you know, not just keeping your guys, but you have to build. And would they be able to get guys in free agency? That's what I just don't know about. And that's kind of where maybe this could come in to affect them to some degree. Not necessarily the cap stuff, but just like you still do only have so much cash that your owner is going to be willing to spend. According to PFF, you had the 22nd ranked passing game. Winston didn't play that much. Maybe you hope that you re-sign him and that goes better. That's possible. The offensive line was banged up and ended up being mediocre. But again, if you lose Armstead, well, it's not going to be that great. Receiving core, they need to add some more bodies there. They just do. The running game, again, the Kamara injuries. So, like, injuries were a real factor in the Saints team. Like, that's a big part of why this is the case. And their run defense is always consistently good. Pass rush, though, not as good as we've seen it in years past. But coverage is made up for it. So the defense still has its pieces. But really what they need is they need to add receiving talent. They need to at least keep their offensive line. They need Kamara healthy, and they might need a quarterback on top of it. So that's a lot of work. Now, typically, I would actually be saying, hey, okay, there's issues, fine. But you know what you have Sean Payton, who can, scheme guys open and make this stuff work. Well, you don't anymore. Sean Payton is gone. So with no Sean Payton, where do you go from here is an interesting question. I think Dennis Allen should do a fine job at kind of replicating it to some degree, but he's not Sean Payton. And, you are going to miss that offensive mind. You are. So what do you do here? How do you find a way to make it work? I think you get the receiving talent. I think you run it back with Jameis, and I think you just re-sign your free agents. Don't really worry about adding too much in free agency because that's going to be tough. But then maybe you build through the draft, get a receiver in the draft, and go from there. The nice thing about the Saints is that they're in a weak division, so there's a very real chance this could still be a playoff team, but that's kind of where they're at right now. It's an interesting situation, though. Saints kind of do things differently than other teams, and it's why they've been successful for a while. So, yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the New Orleans Saints heading into this offseason? Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.